Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Micon Hour. We are a mining consultancy that has provided independent professional advice to mining companies, providers of capital, law firms, and government agencies for over 30 years. Staffed by senior industry consultants with extensive international experience, we are here to discuss relevant topics for the benefit of our mineral industry followers. And now, here is your host, Micon's Mineral Resource Specialist, Alan San Martin.
Hello everyone, my name is Alan San Martin. I'm happy to be back after a nice summer break. So I am fully charged to come back to the Micon Hour. I would like to begin by saying our sustainability statement. At Micon, we work with our clients to promote responsible mining and to integrate the principles of sustainability into their mining projects. In today's episode, we will talk about precision in resource classification. I'm here today with our co-host and colleague, Charley Murahwi. He's joining us from Toronto office. Charley is the senior economic geologist at Micon. Hello, Charley. Thank you for co-hosting today. How are you doing?
Yes, good day to you and to all of our listeners.
How was your summer break?
Yeah, it was really one of the best ones, having gone through the COVID period, and suddenly we are back to freedom way. So, yeah.
Okay.
By a really nice change, yeah.
Okay, that's great. What is meant by precision of resource classification?
Yes, let me start by saying resource classification is the final task in the mineral resource estimation process. And according to the CIM definition standards for 2014, mineral resources are subdivided because in order of increasing geological confidence into inferred, indicated, and measured categories. An inferred mineral resource is a lower level of confidence, and that's applied to an indicated mineral resource. An indicated mineral resource is a higher level of confidence than an inferred mineral resource, but is a lower level of confidence than a measured mineral resource. Thus, talking about precision in mineral resource classification, we are referring to the degree of refinement with which you achieve reality estimation process. In other words, it is a measure of how close you are in reality. The closer you are to reality, the higher the classification. And as I have just stated, this is in line with the CIM definition standards. To summarize, precision in resource classification is the desired truthful conclusion to the mineral resource estimation process. It is centered on how to get things right in your last stage of the mineral resource estimation process.
Yeah, so why is precision in resource classification important?
Right. In order to complete an accurate economic assessment of any mining project, there must be precision in the project's resource classification. And in order to have precision in the classification of resources, the qualified person or QP, if you like, must have the necessary experience in the commodity, type of deposit, and situation of the project. I must emphasize that precision needs to be achieved at both ends of the scale. That is for the measured, indicated, and inferred alike. Many times, people tend to place less care or importance when they declare impaired resources. This is wrong because impaired resources are included in PEA studies or preliminary economic assessment studies. And bearing in mind, we need to look at what the functions, we need to look at what the functions of the PEA are. And these explicitly, they are a roadmap for planning and strategic decision making. And you also use them for preparing a pre-feasibility studies and also as a public disclosure to raise capital and advance the project. In brief, it is a management tool to answer the question, is there scope in pursuing this project? This is also the very same question posed by investors before investing in the project. This highlights what I said, the importance of having a precision across all categories of classification.
Okay, so when we talk about resource estimate, the nature of resource is to be an approximation of reality. So having said that, what exactly do you mean by precision then?
Right, that's a good question, Alan. Precision necessitates that you quantify your margins of error and is directly related to your degree of confidence in arriving at the classification of the mineral resource. When a resource is placed in the measured class, it implies that the measurement tools employed to call it measured. And when something is measured, it means that you have an envisaged true value. Thus, the margin of error should ideally not exceed 5%. An indicated resource, for an indicated resource, the margin of error allows for less precision than the measured resource. And you can have the margin of error anywhere between 10 to 15%. And for an impaired resource, the margin of error should ideally be around 25%. And this is to demonstrate that the bulk of the impaired resource is upgradable to the indicated resource. This is exactly in line with the CIM definition standard of 2014, which state that mineral resource is a lower level of confidence and applying to an indicated mineral resource and must not be converted to a mineral reserve. There. But it then goes on to say it is reasonably expected that the majority of the inferred resource could be upgraded to indicated resources with continued exploration. Here we have to note the difference with the previous CIM definition standards of 2005, which stated that it cannot be assumed that all or any parts of an inferred mineral resource will be upgraded to an indicated or measured mineral resource as a result of continued exploration. This is where the two keys now need to note the difference. And this is where again the importance of inferred resources are emphasized.
Yeah. So here is I want to ask you, what is the importance of having a competent or an experienced qualified person with regards to the precision of this resource classification?
Yeah, good question again, Alan. Because deposits, or in loose terms, ore bodies, are geological phenomena. tonnage and grade estimates of them are as reliable and accurate as the geological base on which they stand. And any estimates made without adequate geological know-how, data and interpretation will in the majority of cases be unreliable. The geological confidence limit, I must emphasize, must be high enough not only to ensure an adequate basis for assessing tonnage and grade, but also to provide an essential framework for testing the validity and applicability of geostatistical studies. Often, some qualified persons consider geospacing and variography when classifying resources as being critical. Yes, that is acceptable within limits, but the underlying fact is that continuity is not a function of geospacing or variography, but a function of geological phenomena. Precision, that's precision when you leave it to the QP, that's key. And you are assured of producing a realistic genetic model, which forms at the beginning of precision. And without the necessary experience, you cannot produce a realistic representation of that deposit. And therefore, it cannot be precise. This is why the regulators, CIM NI 43-101, PC, require that the QP must have the relevant competence and experience in order to complete a resource estimate for a specific mineral commodity, type of deposit, and situation under consideration.
All right, so once you have a block model and you finish your estimate, how do you achieve the precision in this resource classification?
Yes, one needs to bear in mind that the regularity and predictability of the deposit depend upon and are intimately related to the geological system in which it involves. In other words, the genetic model is key. The more we understand how deposits form and what factors control their development and subsequent modification, the better chance we have of being able to evaluate and classify them, and also to plan their development. Clearly, we've got other factors related such as to the data and its configuration. These are important, but these may be tempered by overriding geological issues. In my view, there are 3 points which are of utmost importance in the quest for precision. 1, the genetic model, encompassing also the modeling part. 2, common sense in the art of decision making. And 2, the application. 3, the application of the prudence concept. Right, getting back to point number 1, getting the modeling right and domaining of the deposit. First, we have to recognize that the genetic model you are dealing with, you have to recognize that. And the important thing is to get the modeling and the portioning of the deposit into the right domain. And this is critical, more critical than just the dense feeling. The domaining should be validated or can be validated by simple statistical methods, such as testing whether the sample populations within the domain follow a Gaussian distribution. If by model, then there is further refining required. Once you have your domain, achieved high standards. Then, in the majority of cases, any of the block estimation or interpolation technique will yield approximately the same result.
Right.
That is, the quality of your domains is directly connected with precision in classification and not just the estimation technique. And like I've said, the reality is that when the genetic model is correctly perceived and geological interpretation and domain is correct, there is often very little overall great difference as a consequence of using various methods of interpretation. And as you know, we've got the polygonal, the inverse, which is assigning the value of the nearest sample to the unknown point, the inverse distance, which apply some weights according to their inverse of their separation distance point, and ordinary kriging, similar to ID, but with the added advantage of taking into account the spatial correlation between samples and the point of estimation.
All right. So now that you mentioned this interpolation method, so are you saying that the inverse distance and ordinary kriging will arrive to a similar results?
My answer is no, not always, but in a good number of instances, yes. Examples are in homogeneous deposits, such as coal seams, stratiform or lumpy chromite deposits, stratiform PGE deposits, such as the Merency Cliff, the UG2, these are on the Bushveld complex. The main sulfide zone on the Great Dyke, and here in Canada, the Ring of Fire, the Ring of Fire chromite, the lumpy parrotfish. You go to the States, you are looking at the JM, that's the story. And the reason is simple: the domain attainable in these deposits or these genetic, models is near perfect.
Yeah.
Then, this is another way, as long as you have precise domains, then the estimation interpolation technique to some extent largely immaterial. That said, it is interesting to note that the first thing that the due diligence teams look at when presented with measured indicated results is the grade interpolation method. If it is not kriging, Alan doubts we start imagining on the precision of not only the classification, but also the quality of the estimate. Why? Because kriging, involving geostatistics, is universally accepted as the best interpolation technique. However, almost always, having done that kriging, people forget that the validation of the Krig estimate is achieved by running a parallel estimate using ID3 and which is nearest neighbor, and subsequently so on. So you get a good match between OK and ID, then you've got confidence. This is the indicator.
Okay.
And in view of this, there is no justification in having a prior negative bias on ID estimate, despite the fact that OK is the number of advantages over K, which are beyond the scope of my discussion with you today.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to my number 2 criteria, which is common sense, some practitioners have got a tendency of asking, what is variography saying? Instead, the QT should always pose the question, what is common sense telling me first and foremost? whilst one of the most useful criteria for resource classification is the Kriging invariance. The technique is useless as an actual grade confidence measure unless the data is strictly, and I say strictly, normally distributed. Thus, rigid adherence to estimation techniques or methods should never prevail at the expense of clear thinking. You cannot replace the brain with a tool, no matter how powerful the tool. Then I come to my criteria number 3.
Yeah.
That is applying the prudence concept. Many times this is applied, when you're dealing with accounting and things like that. But this is applicable to mineral resource estimation process. Now, when I say the prudence, apply the prudence concept in dealing with deposits, I'm specifically referring to heterogeneous deposits.
So, are you going to discuss the graphic?
Yes, if you can put
okay.
on.
Yeah, there's the graphic. Everybody can see.
Yeah, I'm simply saying be conservative when declaring measured resources for those deposits that are highly heterogeneous. Sorry for my pronunciation there. Depending on the genetic model, mineral deposits may be either homogeneous and heterogeneous. And as you can see from this slide, there's a general rule. Complex genetic models result in heterogeneous mineralization. The more heterogeneous a deposit, the more difficult it is to estimate and classify the mineral resources. And in such instances where the deposit is complex, heterogeneous, not uniform, it's always better to avoid allocating any part of the deposit to the measured class, regardless of a dense drilling pattern. So I'll get this back later on.
Okay. So this approach, it has an impact or an effect in the economics of the project?
Yes, the success of any mining project is dependent on its foundation, which undoubtedly is precision in the resource definition. When this is wrong, then the entire project is doomed to fail, no matter how good the metallurgy and mining teams are. Thus, you find money lenders and investors always consider, first and foremost, the robustness of the mineral estimation conclusion, which deals with the confidence applied to the resource. And since the upside of the project is dependent on the ability to upgrade the inferred resource, it means confidence levels are important across all categories of the resource. And I must stress that unlike the general saying that a bad beginning makes a good ending, in mining, Alan, a bad beginning makes a bad ending.
Yeah. Okay, so, well, let's start wrapping up. So if you want to give a takeaway to our audience, what is your main conclusion, Charley?
Okay. Again, the degree of success in any mining venture is dependent on how you conclude your mineral resource estimation process, how precise you are in defining the resources. The geological factor is the key deficiency where serious weaknesses have appeared, especially in the grade. This should be obvious from the fact that the geological characteristics of a given deposit are alone in being unalterable, and yet may be the least well-known of all the factors in the estimation process. Every other aspect of a mining venture, be it related to mining or metallurgy, can be altered. This is the crunch of the matter. And my final word is, no matter how powerful the interpolation technique is, you cannot get the classification right for as long as your genetic conception, modeling, and domain are wrong. That's the end of my story.
Okay.
And thank you to the audience for listening to the story again.
Yes, Charlie, thank you. This is very good conversation. We're going to open our microphones if someone has a question for an audience. Okay. So we are now ending this broadcast. So thank you everyone for being here with us today. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please feel free to leave your comments or questions, and be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter so you're kept informed on future episodes.